In this video, we're going to look at how to simplify this lighthouse scene that I photographed while driving down the coast in California. And we're going to turn it into a minimal and whimsical sketch using nothing more than hatching and loose lines. If you're new to the channel, I'm Karan, and I make videos that help rigid rookies turn into loose liners. Essentially, I turn beginners into pros. That's it. So the first thing I like to do whenever I start sketching a new scene, whether I'm on location or I'm doing it from a photograph, is to establish the story I'm trying to tell. And to do that, I always use my SSC framework. If you forgot what that is, that stands for subject, supporting characters, and context. Let's take a look at the scene. I already know the story I want to tell. I want to show the story of the coast. So my subject is the coastline. That's where my eyes are drawn. The main supporting character is the lighthouse. Other supporting characters are the rocks in the foreground. There is no context because I think the subject is a little bit complex in the sense that it is the coast in itself. Normally, if the subject was a lighthouse, I would say that the context would be the coast. But since the subject is the coast, I don't think there's any context in this. So now that you know your story, you know where all your elements are going to be laid out, it's time to draw. The first thing I'm going to do is to draw the horizon line. But be careful here because as you can see, the horizon line goes behind the cliff. So I'm just going to draw the horizon line about maybe a third in from the right-hand side. I'm also going to go outside of my frame because that's going to help it look more dynamic when I'm done. The next thing I'm going to sketch is my lighthouse. So as you remember, about a quarter from the top. My cliff actually comes underneath. I'm not going to draw all of the details in the lighthouse. I'm going to draw this building off to the side here. And these are the supporting characters. And then I'll draw a building or two beside there. I'm not going to focus on the coastline. I've already started to draw it, but now I'm going to go in with a little bit more detail. So here's where the coastline ends, and there are a couple of rocks outside. If you look at the photo, you can see the coastline. The curve of it is about where the lighthouse is, so about a quarter in from the left-hand side. So I'm going to start my curve there. Now I'm going to focus on the foreground of the coastline, since that comes in front of where the curve is, and this will begin to be the rocks in the foreground. So I want to draw these rocks loosely. I'm not putting a lot of detail into them. I'm going to draw some of the rocks in the water. And then you can see there's another curve around here. I'm not going to draw the whole curve. I'm just going to allude to it. I'm going to start focusing on the rocks in the foreground now. So with these, try to draw them quite loosely. We're not being representational here. Here's where our personality can be. Don't be afraid to overlap of what you've already done. Look back here is where the top of the cliff is. Right now, this is looking like a bit of a mess. It's just a bunch of loose lines. There's a bunch of squares, a bunch of circles. They're all kind of just existing. They're not really doing anything. The next part is where it all gets tied in together. We'll be doing shadows in two parts. The first, we're going to draw the shape of the shadow, and then we're going to go in and use hatching to make them pop. So to do that, I'm going to look at the shapes I've already drawn and then draw where the shadows will be. Goes up a little bit here. This area will also be shadows, and I'm pretty sure here I'll also add some shadows. I'm going to start at the top here and work downward to the right. Add some hatching there too. The same thing onto these shapes that I just drew. Just gonna draw this cliff a little bit more, just to show a separation of space between the midground and the background. This scene was a great example of how you don't need to sketch every single detail when you're on location or from a photograph. You just need a few little elements to tell a compelling story. For this scene, it was just some loose lines and a few diagonal hatches, and we have something minimal, we have something whimsical, we have something pretty stunning. For more minimal tutorials just like this one, check out the playlist on the top. But if this was a little too overwhelming and you're a bit of a beginner, check out the playlist over here, which is curated for people just like you.